Thank you for tuning in to the WDRB Media, the voice of the community. And those streaming live through free TuneIn radio app and through iHeartRadio, you're listening to Precious Connections, and I'm your host, Elena McClendon. Today we are discussing sex therapy. My special guest is Mr. Todd Malloy.
Hello, how are you?
I'm wonderful. How are you, Mr. Malloy?
Quite well, thank you. Quite well.
I'm so glad to have you here on my show. And before I talk about how we met, I want to kind of read a little bit of your bio first, please.
Not a problem.
So I just want to let my audience know that you are a relational sex therapist.
Well, actually, I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist, certified sex therapist, and certified sexuality educator. As when I share information, basically, I work with people in regards to relationships, and specifically about sex matters, sexuality, intimacy, things of that nature. So I try to shorten all the different letters by my name.
Yes, thank you, because I was wondering.
You see, when you look at all the letters, like, okay, what does this person do?
Yes.
So basically, if I put, instead of 10 letters, I just put relational and sex therapist. It kind of locks it in a little, makes it a little easier.
It does lock it in. Yes, it does lock it in. I can understand it a whole lot better, the relational and sex therapist part.
Exactly. So it makes it easier.
It does. It does. I was very intrigued to have met you, but I'm going to get into your bio first, and then we'll get into
All right, not a problem.
the way we met. So Mr. Todd Malloy, as an authority on relationships and personal empowerment, Mr. Todd Malloy is a highly respected relationship therapist. He's a certified sex therapist and certified sexuality educator on the teaching staff of the University of Michigan Sexual Health Certificate Advanced Postgraduate Program with the history of community service and success. Todd is the producer and host of Man Cave Conversations, which is a forum to inform men in the areas of manhood, relationships, sexual health, intimacy, passion, and beyond, and provide women with a bird's eye view of what men talk about in the Man Cave Conversations. Mr. Malloy is also the co-author of the book Time to Rise, which is stories of personal growth and professional transformation that help you find your purpose and live your best life. In addition, he is also an incoming board of directors member of the American Association of Sex Educators, Counselors, and Therapists. His passions is to uplift and guide individuals, couples, and families through the emotional ebbs and flows of life, crossroads, and sexuality issues. Todd Malloy's professional and academic careers have earned him the respect of his colleagues, peers, and those that he partners with to create a safe environment and serve as an unbiased sounding board in achieving lives worth celebrating. Mr. Malloy, he does have a very respectful bio, and I just want to read a lot of his accreditations so that for you of my listeners that are listening would know that he is well accredited. Mr. Malloy is well accredited in what he's talking about and certified. You know, he's not just someone I met just in passing, but he's a professional and he knows what he's talking about. So I just wanted to let you know also that his media availability with the wealth of expertise in mental health and wellness, Todd Malloy is available for expert commentary across a wide variety of categories, including relationship matters, intimacy, infidelity, emotional distress, sexual concerns, sexuality education, sexual trauma, and trauma of neglect. When I met Mr. Malloy, I did not know anything about anything that has to do with sex therapy. So, you know, once I read his bio and I read about sexual trauma, trauma of neglect, I really wanted to know more about that as well. So, Mr. Malloy, I am going to let you have the floor, and you can talk about exactly what you would like to talk about when it comes to where you want to start.
Okay. Well, when people ask me what I do, typically I have to be honest. We were in a restaurant. I'm eating food. You ask me what I do. I could give the 90-minute elevator speech, or I could just say, "Hey, I'm a sex therapist,"
right,
and keep eating.
Right.
So, however, when I really introduce myself to people in this type of setting and what we're doing now, it's been my heart's desire to be a part of the solution. My life has taught me that life is extremely fragile,
Yes.
and as a result of that, I've wanted to be in a place where I could really be a help people uh, learn their inner voices, to be able to value themselves enough to share their truth. So when you look at people, you can't look at people as just a being. They're a global person. There are layers, there are dimensions, there's avenues. So from a therapeutic perspective, I've always looked at people from a systemic approach. Systemic approach is not just from a Freudian approach where people say, okay, if you had a bad relationship with your mother, that's why XYZ is going on. We're more than just the relationship we've had with our parents, their socioeconomic situation, whether it's a religious impact, sex, sexuality, because there's enough research out there that identifies that we are sexual beings.
Right.
So my approach is systemic. So as my training is very eclectic, but it allows me to meet people at the many different layers and dimensions. So within that includes sex and sexuality. You know, when I talk about what I do, people are often say, "Ooh, first of all, does people need help with sex?" Well, you know, especially if I was at church. I mentioned one time, they asked me what I did at church, and they looked at me like I said something wrong.
Uh-huh.
I said, well, hey, where do little Christians come from?
Right, exactly.
Somebody's doing something. But it's not just the point of having sex. That's why I'm a sex therapist. There are a number of things that impact people having sex, impact sexuality, impact your own self-value, and so forth. Intimacy and sex is neck up, not actually waist down.
Right.
So it's when you understand the mind, the psyche, things that have played a part in your life and how it manifests, it facilitates allowing people to walk in their most empowered selves and in a position to celebrate life.
That's right. That's right. That is really right. That's of course that's right, you know.
That's my story. I'm sticking to it.
Yes, yes. And you know, and that's very interesting because a lot of people believe that sex is from the waist down.
No,
know?
there's enough research and education to identify that. We are impacted by a lot of life. So, for example, you know, women have a perception, or some women have a perception, even men think they always want sex. Men don't always want sex, and women don't always say no, and women don't always want to have sex. What it is where are we mentally, physically, spiritually? Because, for example, at which point you have a man that's stressed out about work, stressed out about job situation, family situation, body image, etc. All of those things come into play when you talk about intimacy and relationship, no different than a woman.
Right.
Research says that women lack erotic focus. So therefore, we're taught that women have to slow their brains down even for the arousal process to come into play. So if you have, for example, I guess the simplest model that may reflect that is the Bassan sexual response cycle. You can look it up online. It's a nice little picture with a lot of different pieces and parts.
Okay.
But in order to have a healthy, intimate relationship, there's a biological effect, there's a psychological effect, and there's a physiological effect. Because, again, at University of Michigan, I teach sexual health, and there's so many elements and ingredients that have to be in place for the healthiest of sexual relationship. And healthiest doesn't mean partner, who your partner is or who your partner isn't. Healthy means how you feel about what you're doing, and your availability to do the things that you desire to do. So there's a multitude of things going on chemically, through the nervous system, structurally in your body structure. So, however, in addition to that, it's body image issues. You know, theoretically, all men are supposed to look like Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. All women are supposed to look like the Vogue or Sports Illustrated cover girl model. So, if you get undressed, see, it's nice that we can put our clothes on and look like whoever we want to look like.
Right.
But now when it comes time where I might have to take something off and show a little extra,
Right.
it creates some confusion.
Yes.
So if I can't be comfortable with myself and transparent and vulnerable with myself, how am I able to do that with someone else?
Right, right.
So, and now from a therapeutic perspective, I'm wondering, why can't you be that comfortable?
Right.
Why can't you be comfortable with yourself? Who taught you something about you was wrong or not right?
Right.
So, and again, it allows me now to begin to ask questions. A person's sexual life really is just another medium upon understanding their own personal internal issues,
Okay.
such that now, as we, sex and may be taboo in some settings, really it's just a window to see inside a person, such that now we can allow that person to maximize who they are and come into their most exciting, most freeing and empowered self.
Okay, that's a good way to look at it. That's a good way to look
Well,
at it.
I'm convinced. I'm convinced.
Yes, yes. And there are some people that that I have met as friends, and as we have conversations, I mean, ladies and gentlemen who have said that they are addicted to sex, or they feel like it's something that they need to have. Is that something that really is something that exists, a sex addiction?
Well, according to my stance, and I support the American Association of Sex Educators, Counselors, and Therapists, research-wise really doesn't say that there is such a thing as sex addiction. That behavior, the symptomology, is a result of something else. So no different than a DSM, or when you diagnose a person, you can't do surface stuff. It's depression unless, yada, 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 yada. There's some caveats, there's criteria. So if you don't understand this is a surface symptom, but what's the root cause? So from a sexual perspective, we want to look at, or from a diagnostic perspective, we look at root cause. So was there any form of sexual trauma involved? Is there such a thing as neglect going on? There's something that is being fed through the sexual behavior. So the question is, what is being fed and why is that there?
That's right.
Sexual addiction is it's a nice buzz term for the TV. I was on the radio for when Harvey Weinstein did his thing, and everybody likes to use this term. But there's some other mitigating factors that create that symptomology. And from a scientific perspective, we want to deal with root cause, not symptoms.
Right. Definitely root cause, for sure. Because even looking at the media, as far as television, like you said, you see a lot of people who focus on the outer appearance,
Not the inner.
right?
Right. So, and again, I prefer, and anyone that's been in my therapy office, I dig. So, it's nice. We all look pretty. We all put our mask on and so forth, and that's nice. But I recognize you're more than a mask you wear. So let's dig inside and really deal with what those issues are. I've had clients that theoretically define themselves as sexual addictions, sex addicts. However, as you begin to dig, you see the trauma, you see the sense of powerlessness coming from a lot of different dimensions. So it's not that; it's a sense of power and control. It's a need of being wanted, being valued. For example, this is not me. I'm sharing research, so I don't mean to offend. However, but a young lady that has not been reared by her father, and I've been taught, and there's enough research to say that the absence of a father has a significant impact on a young woman. And from a socioeconomic perspective, there's a higher propensity for her to become pregnant, maybe do some other things, smoke, et cetera, et cetera. However, so therefore there's a gap there. That father, to some degree, teaches a young woman her femininity. However, in the absence of that, and that young lady looking for love and affection, research says that young women that don't have fathers in their lives develop faster,
Right.
such that now it attracts men. Theoretically, then a man would say, "Hey, I care for you. I value, I have affection for you." To some degree, filling the void of the father, but now it sets the young man up to be, or the young lady to be victimized. Because now I love you, yeah, but I love you for the moment until I say thanks for the experience.
And that's what a lot of women experience.
Unfortunately. So, again, there are just a lot of factors involved, and then young women find themselves going from relationship to relationship to relationship, playing out games, schemes, scenarios that they really don't want to be in, but they find themselves caught in a cycle. So even though I don't like the way that I'm being appreciated, I feel I have to, because it feeds me something that I'm looking for that I can't find any other way.
And that happens a lot. Thank you, Mr. Malloy, for visiting with me on WDRB Media, the voice of the community. You are listening to Precious Connections, and I'm your host, Elena McClendon.